General Motors' IPO is keeping cars certainly at the forefront of investors' minds, and it seems Toyota is looking to inject some fun into automaking with a renewed push for sports cars. Bloomberg News columnist Jason Harper is one of the few who actually has driven, well, Toyota's new supercar, the Lexus LFA, pricing at just under $400,000. Not a bad assignment.
Chump change, right?
Yeah, we're going to talk about that car in a moment. First, let's just talk about General Motors. As we're talking about the IPO, we're talking about the risks for investors. What about the fleet that General Motors has to offer? What about the risk for the potential car buyers? They're looking for safe, reliable, affordable. Are they going to find it?
It's really good news for GM right now because they do have new products coming in. Ford has a lot of great cars coming out right now, so they're kind of doing the best out of everybody as far as product is concerned. However, GM's got something like they have the Chevy Bolt coming out, which is their extended range electric vehicle.
The president just drove it.
Yeah, it's $40,000, but you will get a tax break on it, and it's not cheap, but it's sort of a halo vehicle. It's sort of one of the ideas that Chevy's proving that they can do something kind of complicated and really cool.
That's not cheap, though.
It's not cheap. However, there's also something called the Chevy Cruze, which is coming out, which is going to be about $17,000. It's almost the size of a mid-size, and yet it's priced sort of economy, and it gets 40 miles per gallon, supposedly. So that should bring in customers.
Okay, all right, so now let's talk about things that really aren't cheap. Let's talk about the Lexus LFA. It is the new creme de la creme when it comes to the Lexus vehicles. You've had a chance to get behind the wheel. It's a nearly $400,000 vehicle.
This is $400,000. This is a supercar. This hits the niche of Ferraris and Lamborghinis and these very specialized cars. They're only making 500 of them. When they started the project, I think it was, these ideas when there was so much money. It's unfortunate timing for them, but Lexus and Toyota both hit knocks because they're sort of boring cars. They're cars that people don't think about driving. So they're trying to inject some fun back into the brand, and this is a way to do it. It is a halo car. Inject
some fun, but what also is the goal here with injecting what into the brand as it's trying to mend its image?
There's sort of a trickle-down effect here. The idea that you're going to bring in younger consumers, people who are excited about this LFA may actually end up in showrooms. However, it's sort of unfortunate timing with all the the safety recalls, because obviously when they started putting this in, this was 4 or 5 years ago when they started looking at this car.
Our graphic there says Toyota chief evokes James Bond. Did you feel like James Bond when you're behind the vehicle?
Well, no. I mean, I get to drive a lot of cars, and there's sort of a question of who's going to buy a $400,000 Lexus. There's a Ferrari.
Who's going to?
Well, and that's a good question. I mean, you could buy the Ferrari 599, which is actually a little cheaper, and it's got all this sort of long history behind it. Lexus doesn't have a history of sports cars, so it's a bit of a gamble for them.
But there is a more affordable concept car that could be out in, 2011, 2012?
Yeah, probably maybe next year. There's a rear-wheel drive, probably around $22,000.
ST86.
That's what they're calling it right now. I'm sure it'll get called something else. It's basically the idea that some of this technology they've used for the LFA will eventually come and be accessible to more normal human mortals. So, and there used to be sport cars. Toyota used to make the Supra, which was a really fun, cool, affordable sports car. They're trying to bring some of this back.
Lessons learned, though. What are they bringing with these two new vehicles that they've learned lessons from in the last couple of years?
Well, and that's the thing. They had to sort of break a whole new mold for them because they didn't have this technology that a lot of the other companies were developing. Rear-wheel drive, sporty handling characteristics are much different than something like a Corolla. They're completely different vehicles.
Certainly. All right. Now that Maserati, you had a chance to get behind the wheel of this vehicle as well. 2011. It's out right now. They're expecting to sell about 600 convertibles here in the U.S.
These are the convertibles. It's called the GranTurismo, and it's very old, sort of classic European throwback. It's very sexy. It is a wind in your hair type of vehicle. I mean, this is one of those cars like you imagine being in the Amalfi Coast and cruising around. I actually had it around here in New York. We put the top down. It was one of those great days when
you had this on the streets of Manhattan?
We took it on the streets of Manhattan, sure. And interesting though, Maseratis, people don't pay attention to them the same way they will, say, a lot of other Italian exotics. It's actually slightly understated Maserati.
So you weren't getting checked out, is what you're saying?
Well, not as much as you would expect.
Okay.
And also, this is a $140,000 car for an Italian exotic. That's cheap, believe it or not.
Yes. So what are you not getting with this vehicle if you're only paying $140,000?
Well, part of it is just that the Ferraris are so cool, or the Lamborghinis are so cool. This is a slightly understated brand, believe it or not. So you're getting a great. The engine's actually built by Ferrari. It's designed by an Italian firm. It looks beautiful. It's just, it's just a little easier to get into.
And you actually were telling me off camera that you don't have a car in Manhattan.
Well, no, I get a new car every week to test drive around. So
nice job.
I'm in Manhattan.
All right. Jason Harper, a columnist here with Bloomberg. Thanks, Jason.